Hey collectors, welcome to Star Wars Collected. I'm Jonathan. If you're new here, I hope you consider sticking around and subscribing. If you've been here before, I hope you leave me a like if you like helmets, because what I have for you guys today is my biggest helmet haul yet. If you've been following along for a while, you'll know that I absolutely love helmets. They're my absolute favorite thing to collect. I have about 100 or so of them in my collection, and I was working with a guy, his name's Paul. You may have heard me mention him in a former video. He was looking to get rid of some helmets. I was looking to get some helmets, so we worked out a great bundle deal. Bundling is something that I mentioned in one of my tips of collecting video that we've done in the past. I'll link that above. But he was looking to get rid of them, I was looking to get them. So it worked out really, really well, he and I. And I'm gonna go ahead and drop the information. If I know the manufacturer of the helmets, I'll put that in the description below. But can you tell what this one is from the behind? Most of you are going to be able to. I thought maybe start off one with a little bit of a mystery here. This is a Darktrooper helmet. We saw these in some ways in Legends back in the day. You know, this is slightly different than that, but not a lot different than that. But we saw this heavily in Mandalorian Season 2. Taking on Grogu and stuff. Overall, I think it's a pretty good looking bucket. It's not the smoothest in the world, but looks pretty good. There are a couple scuffs here and there. This one just sort of has like a little bit of a white scuff on this one here, but you know, I can just go back with a little bit of gloss black and get rid of that. I would say it's probably ever so slightly undersized, just thinking about how big the Darktroopers are, but you know, not tremendously so. And you know, overall, a very nice looking helmet. I love the eyes on it, and there is some padding on the inside here too. So if one wanted to wear it and their head would fit, it would work in here. And there is a glowing eye feature here with the batteries, which is very, very cool and very reminiscent of how they look in the show. So that is a nice, very cool feature. Not something that I typically have on most of my helmets. Let's go ahead and get this one kind of out of the way. This helmet was the one that I was actually probably most excited about when picking it up from Paul. But if you've seen one of my recent videos, my opinion of it has soured. Unfortunately, CyberCraft is a terrible company from what I can tell. I thought that they had kind of been terrible, but sort of fixed that. Looks like they're back to just being sort of terrible and stealing print files from makers and then making things with those files without paying royalties. Not a cool thing to be basing a business off of. I thought the paint job on this was pretty decent. A lot of this stuff's very intricate and hard to do, but partway through that video, you learn that this is on the wrong mold. This is not Sabine Wren's mold. This is Bo-Katan's mold. And you know, if you go to their website, it does say like Bo-Katan, Sabine Wren, but like, what is that? Like, someone buying this, they're expecting to get an accurate helmet of Sabine Wren, and this is not that. This is a Bo-Katan helmet that someone's taken some artistic liberties with. So that's really disappointing. It looks really cool still, very nice as far as the paint job, but just sort of tainted now. That's not what it should be. And knowing what I know about CyberCraft, even more so from when I made that video, it's gonna be on my shelf for a while until I find a replacement of it. And in the meantime, it's gonna be kind of a sour thing sitting there. But this was one of the other helmets that I picked up in that group, and we'll move on to the next one. Okay, so the last helmet was sort of a Rebel, sort of a Clone Wars style helmet, and we're gonna stick with that here with another Clone Wars helmet. This is a Clone Pilot helmet. I have a Phase 1 version of this, which is in sort of the more realistic, screen accurate version. This may be my only helmet in my collection that is in the animated style. It's not my preferred style. I prefer things in Star Wars to look, you know, things in my collection to look realistic, like that they were actually real or something of that nature. But I have yet to see someone make a realistic life version of what this helmet would look like for the Clone Wars. Now, I'm not exactly sure what phase this is. I'm guessing it's Phase 2. However, I know by Revenge of the Sith, the pilots' faces are completely visible. So I'm not sure if that is version 2.5, version 3, what phase it is. I'm not up to speed on my clone pilots, I guess. But overall, you know, not a bad looking helmet. Someone definitely spent the time here to add some nice weathering throughout. My biggest thing with the animated stuff is just the proportions are obviously kind of distorted and exaggerated. And then there's just sort of a lack of detail just in general. Things that you would expect to have on a helmet have been sort of just rounded out and things of that nature. But it is a helmet that I did not have in my collection. And when Paul was ready to bundle, so was I. So we have another Clone Pilot helmet here to add to the collection. Speaking of clones and speaking of Phase 2 clones, we have another Clone Trooper bucket here. This is a Phase 2 clone. Very clean. There's a little bit of a scuff up here, which I guess is probably an accident or something of that nature. I already have a lot of Phase 2 clones. Almost all of them, though, are painted in some way to represent a different battalion or a specific character. I do have one sort of phase 2 that's completely clean, but I don't like the eyes on it. It just sort of feels a little soft the way it was molded. You know, I got excited when Black Series were releasing theirs, but again, I think the eyes on that one are a little off. But I do like this one's got a lot of really nice detail. This sort of like ribbing here on the back is not something that I think most of my other ones have, so that's a really nice detail. It does have the teeth cut out here with the grill underneath. So overall, it's a very nice helmet, and I will be using probably this one as my display piece opposed to the other Phase 2 Clone Trooper helmet that I had already. All right, guys, I have been on a TIE Pilot kick recently, trying to kind of find the perfect TIE Pilot helmet. TIE Pilot helmets are hard to find a good one. A lot of them make them too small. It's a very large helmet. You have to figure this is essentially a Rebel pilot helmet here on the side that has been put over top of a Stormtrooper helmet, and then you can see how much thicker the mohawk is on this versus a normal Rebel pilot helmet. So it's a big helmet, and most of the time I feel like they scale them down a little bit. This one looks pretty good overall. There is this really odd, like, button. I'm guessing it was bubble wrapped too early, and there's all these like little tiny little things on here, little tiny paint marks that I'm hoping the camera's picking up. So this may need a repaint or a little sanding or something like that, but that's okay, because one of the reasons I want a lot of these is because I want to do the different versions of it. You know, I love the ones that have the tears going down the eyes. I've really enjoyed having ones from, you know, Battlefront 2 and sort of in that style. There's some cool ones from the video games with some different like kind of skull face painting on them and things like that. And then this helmet came with some cool accessories. So it came with the battery box here, which actually has like a little switch inside. I don't think there's batteries in it right now, but there's a little switch inside here to do something. This is from Faraway Creations. And it also came with some really good looking hoses. I have some other ones that have come with hoses, but these look like real hoses that the TIE pilots would use. So, you know, happy to have another TIE pilot here in my collection, and looking forward to kind of putting them all together and figuring out which one is going to be what and getting some time to customize them. Sticking with the black and the glossy and original trilogy, if you will, this is a Death Trooper helmet. Now, I had already built a Death Trooper helmet, but I thought mine was too small, and I always kind of did, and it always kind of bothered me. But this one is, I think, a really great size, and the person who made it did a really good job at getting the paint correct as far as some of the matte or satin black that goes here and there around. It has a paint job similar to Darth Vader in A New Hope, where there's some matte black, there's some gloss black, and it kind of, you know, moves back and forth. It doesn't have the rangefinder on the side, which is, you know, not on all of them, but might be something that I might add at some point. I actually already have one 3D printed, but I think if I was going to do a full cosplay and really commit myself, I think it'd be a Death Trooper, because Death Troopers are supposed to be like 6'4" and taller. They're supposed to be like genetically modified or something like that. So I'm 6'7", so outside of like being the big man himself, I feel like a Death Trooper is a pretty cool and fitting costume. Plus it just looks really cool. You know, they've got a good mix of soft parts and these kind of different rubber pieces, and it just looks kind of cool. There's like a little bit of H.R. Geiger going on there or something like that, like a little bit of Alien. But I'm really happy to have this one in the collection. Like I said, I already have a Death Trooper helmet. I'll probably go ahead and sell that one at some point, but it's really cool to have like a real legit version of this helmet in the collection. So of course we know the Death Trooper from Rogue One, but we also know it from The Mandalorian and other Disney Plus series. And we also know this guy right here from The Mandalorian. Now, his little earpiece here fell off during shipping. It looks like there was just some hot glue on that before, so not a big deal. Actually, sometimes I ask them to remove things like this so they don't get broken during shipping. So I will hold it on the side so we can get the full effect here. But Paz Visla, a cool character. His hot toy has been extremely popular, despite being a fairly minor character, voiced by Jon Favreau, of course, in The Mandalorian itself. So that is kind of a cool type thing there. And a helmet that I've been kind of wanting to build or buy for a long time. I've seen a lot of good versions, seen a lot of bad versions, and I would say this one is more towards the former. I think it's got a good amount of weathering without being too over the top. The paint is not super glossy on it. You know, it looks like a pretty good, legit prop. So I am pleased to have this one in the collection. Sticking with The Mandalorian, I think this is one of the characters that really stuck out to a lot of us, despite having a fairly small role in Season 1, Season 2, and now Book of Boba Fett. And there's no hiding what this character is, even if it's turned around here. This, of course, is the Armourer. I think it's a good mold. I think that the paint job was done very well on it. I'm just not sure if it's the right paint job. It's very much gold. There is this like the slightest green tint to it when it sort of hits the crevices here and there. And it's also very glossy. So guys, I actually really would love your opinion on this. There's a couple marks here and there too on it. So it's not like it'd be the end of the world if I had to do a little bit of repainting or weathering or something like that on it. But I would really, really love your guys' opinion down in the comments about what do you think? Like, should it be this glossy? Should it be this like dark? And like I said, there's just like, it's almost like, I hate to say green, but it's almost like there's a slight tint of green when you get into some of the really dark shadows. Now, one thing I really love about this helmet that most people never see on it, notice about it, is it has like the coolest helmet liner that I've ever seen. I suppose it would be cooler if it was actually you know, hard parts on here. That would be legit. But there's this helmet liner on here that is meant to also give you details for the actual you know, actual internals of the helmet. So a really cool way to kind of finish it off and pad it up. So I think that's really cool. It says Marcus Studio Props here on the bottom, but what a cool little added feature and kind of a surprise for me when I bought it. I didn't realize at least that was going to be so decked out inside. Let me know what you think about, you know, the finish on this and the color on this down in the comments. Really appreciate your advice. All right, collectors, and we're at our last one here. Last but not least, this is a helmet that I've seen for years while collecting, and quite honestly just didn't appeal to me all that much. I try to collect things that I think are canon, basically, that again, kind of exist within Star Wars for real. So this is, at least marketed as, Starkiller's helmet. I always thought it was, you know, cool looking helmet, all that stuff. I did not play the Unleashed video games growing up, so I didn't have that sort of like emotional connection to it. And again, with it not really being canon, it's sort of like someone's idea of Star Wars, if you will. However, when I saw Andor, and Andor, this shows up a ton in Luthen's antique shop on a mannequin. I was like, okay, there's my excuse. That's, you know, something actually existing in canon that is a, you know, a Sith artifact or something of that nature. So I can add this to my collection and have it still be canon. So I'm excited to have it. It is a very cool look. I can see why people still kind of go after this helmet and collect this helmet today, and why people are always kind of wanting, whether it be Starkiller and maybe perhaps under a different name now, or his sort of disguise to show up in canon. I know at one point he was considered to maybe be a character in Rebels, which I didn't end up doing, but I'm sure the fans would have loved it if they had. Well, collectors, there you have it. There's 9 helmets, 8 up here right now. We're putting the CyberCraft one in timeout. You know, this is my biggest haul of helmets from one person ever, and I have to say thank you to Paul again for making this connection with me. You know, each one kind of has its own little thing that's maybe a little bit off about it, but that is kind of always the case with helmets, at least in my experience, especially when I make them. So I'm okay with all that stuff. And a great diversity here, stuff from the Mandalorian, things from, you know, Rogue One. We've got the prequel stuff here that's, you know, kind of not canon, but re-canon. Animated stuff, the OT, I mean, you can't go wrong, right? So guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm so excited about building this space that I'm in right now and really displaying these helmets properly and showing you guys all this stuff all the time. If you're new here, consider sticking around, subscribing, really appreciate it. You know, sharing this video, liking this video, subscribing really helps a small channel like mine grow into something big. I'm getting super excited about Celebration. A couple things have been coming out here and there, but make no mistake, I'll be making a couple videos about Celebration. I'll be making videos while I'm at Celebration too, so you guys can follow along. Just how beautiful, right? Such great designs. Guys, thanks for joining me. I'll see you later.